Hey everyone, it's Mark here, and in today's video I want to talk about how to reduce your stress. This seems to be an epidemic that is making its way across the world globally, and for good reason. There's a lot of things in today's day and age to be stressed about. So what I want to cover in today's video is 7 different steps that I have gone through in my own personal life that I have found to be useful in terms of reducing my stress. The first one that I'm going to recommend to you is to do something for yourself. We spend a lot of time every day or every week doing stuff for other people, whether that be in our social circle or in our job. A lot of that surrounds other people and not necessarily taking care of ourselves. So what I like to do each week is I will go out into nature. There's a forest that's by my place, and I'll just try to get out there for an hour and a half. And I find that to be a really good way to just recalibrate myself, kind of bring myself back into a place of balance and regrounding. And throughout this time, I try not to bring anything that is too stimulating. So I turn my phone on airplane mode. I'm not going to listen to music. I'm just going to really try to take in that experience for what it is. I want to try to get myself into a state that is going to provide high output and productivity for the week to come. So that's something that I personally like to do for myself. It can be chunked into, say, like an hour or an hour and a half slot, or it could even just be 5 to 10 minutes each day. It doesn't necessarily have to happen all in one day or be for an extended period of time. But I think at least doing one thing for yourself each week that accumulates up to, say, about an hour is really important. And you'll find if it's something that is of benefit in terms of your health, that's going to start to create a compounding effect, and that'll create good momentum for you kind of carrying into the week ahead. The second thing that I'm going to recommend is to reduce or eliminate altogether any unbeneficial stimuli. Now this can be with the devices that we find ourselves with, like a cell phone, can be a laptop, a computer. Obviously, with the technology side of things, it's difficult to entirely eliminate that, but at least try to reduce your use of them is going to help with you reducing your stress. You become very dependent on these devices for certain aspects of validation, to stay in the loop, and what ends up happening is we, over time, are going to actually begin to rewire our brain chemistry. And when that part of our brain isn't being active, say when we're just interacting with people, we're changing our chemistry for the worse. And because we're becoming dependent on a certain level of response from something that is inanimate and not natural from our environment. So by reducing or eliminating some stimuli, you should start to reduce your stress levels. And some things that you could think about eliminating could be unhealthy relationships or friendships in your life. That is just causing unnecessary stress to come into your life that is just going to manifest in other areas of your life. And that may not be the easiest thing for you to eliminate or reduce the time spent on, but it's probably one that is going to have potentially one of the most profound effects on reducing your stress. So I'll let you think about that, about things that you think you could eliminate in your life that would have the highest order of effect on reducing your stress. And what you'll find is as you kind of chunk these things out of your life, you're going to have more available time to do things like spend time with yourself or do something for yourself. And overall, you should notice a reduction in your stress level. The third one that I'm going to recommend is getting a good night's sleep. I know you've probably heard that one a million times before, but something as simple as getting a good night's sleep can be the difference between having a really good day and having a day where you feel like the day is just working against you in every single fashion. So what I like to do for my sleep is make sure that I at least have a routine set up going into it. So every night before I go to bed, 60 minutes prior to that, I'm going to eliminate all technology And I'll typically just either interact with people through conversation, like my roommate or with my partner, or I'll just do 60 minutes of reading. I may even have like a Epsom salt bath, and the idea there is to try to just kind of waver off the amount of stimulation that I'm taking in from the day. And I found that to be quite beneficial in just improving my overall sleep and just having an overall sense of feeling more recharged when I wake up in the morning. And again, this is something that is compounding. So the more that you can have a good night's sleep, the more energy output you're gonna have, the more you're gonna get done, therefore the more productive you're gonna feel, therefore your stress level should come down. Now the same is true in the inverse. So if you're not getting a good night's sleep, night in and night out, you're not gonna get as much done, therefore you're not gonna be as productive as you would like to be, therefore the stress is gonna continue to compile on top of one another. So it's important that you start to look at things in a way of, what is an action that I'm doing and how is that compounding? And is that going to be something that is going to be beneficial for me not only right now in the moment, but over a long period of time? Number 4 is to stay hydrated or drink lots of water. Another one that is very common that you've probably heard many times, but is extremely important. A lot of people live in a chronically dehydrated state, so just drinking good filtered water is my recommendation. The more hydrated you're ultimately gonna feel, and probably the better you're just gonna feel in general. It's amazing that if I feel like I'm going through something that is really stressful, or if I'm just feeling like run down from the day, I'll just pound like 500 milliliters of water. I'm not sure what that converts to in ounces, but I'll pound about half a liter of water, and I find within about 20-30 minutes I start to just come into more of a state of relaxation. You need to think that if I am chronically dehydrated, then what is that communicating to my body internally, right? So it's important that you're thinking about the inner workings or mechanisms of your body and how that is sending the signal through your nervous system and say to your brain, for example. So if I'm chronically dehydrated, then my body is inevitably going to be in a chronic state of stress because it's trying to consistently fight to kind of replenish its resources. So it's important to think about not even just water, but even the diet aspect of things and the food or the fuel that you're putting into your system. If the first thing that you do in the morning is slam 2 cups of coffee, not only are you just like jump starting your cortisol to ridiculous proportions, but you're also putting your body into a more state of dehydration. So now you just took where you were, you reduced it by we'll say like 50%. So now when you drink that half liter of water, that just brings you back to baseline where you were. So now you're not even getting into the surplus of being hydrated. So when you go to drink water, I encourage you to have it sourced well. In a lot of places, you got to think about the pipes and where that water is actually coming from, but more importantly, what it's actually going through. You can have the most pristine glacier-fed water, but if it's getting sent through copper pipes that are rusted and it's picking up all this other residue, then you're probably not getting the most benefit from your water. So I personally like to have, I have a reverse osmosis machine, and I just put that into a big carboy that gets put into a cooler, and then I know each time that I want some water, I have a good refreshing beverage to have. Number 5 is to do something out of your comfort zone. So a lot of people get used to just doing things routinely, day in, day out. They get used to just kind of the ebb and flow of life. I go to my job, I do this thing, I see this person, I attend whatever event on this day weekly, and you start to build just a habit or comfortability around your life. And that's not really adding much of a zest, I guess we'll say. And for that, it can create a sense of things almost becoming a little bit mundane or mediocre. and you want to try to spice things up a little bit, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So by doing something out of your comfort zone, you not only challenge your inner dialogue, but you're also kind of distracting yourself from things that you're usually used to in life. Because we can get so well adjusted to these kind of habits and patterns that we find ourselves doing, it's very easy to just be very focal with where our stress is being distributed. So you need to think about how can you do something that is very different than what you would do on any given Wednesday, we'll say. Instead of having this for lunch or interacting with this person at lunchtime, I'm gonna go to the person that I feel least drawn to, for example. And by doing so, you're kind of throwing a little bit of a wrench in your daily routine, which is going to promote just a different sense of, could be like belonging or just challenging what it is that you have going on internally. And by doing so, you will inevitably start to reduce your stress, mainly because you're getting more comfortable with your environment. We tend to just draw towards things that we're inherently comfortable with, and that can leave a lot of stress just in that little bubble, and we kind of forget about everything else that's outside of it. But instead of just interacting, we'll say, with this bubble right here, what if now the bubble was this big? So now when you go to do any given activity, you have your range of comfortability is much higher, and therefore the stress in a given situation or just the distraction from the stress itself will be a little bit easier to manage. Number 6 is to share an experience with someone. I know I first started with trying to do something for yourself, but in contrast to that, we want to make sure that we're sharing experiences with other people and we're not just being introverted hermits. Something that a lot of us can tend to get into, mainly because of the comfortability that we have within ourselves. So by sharing an experience with someone else, you start to generate just a different perception of how you experience things. Because now instead of just seeing it through your lens, you can see something collectively with another human being. And after all, we are very social creatures. We grew up, or really what gave us the advantage in nature was being able to create a sense of community and work together with like-minded people who wanted to achieve a common goal. It's not so much the case today. It's very easy to disconnect yourself from that tribe or from other humans and just kind of go into your own bubble. So what I would challenge you to do is try to reach out to somebody or try to do something that you're uncomfortable with. So maybe try reaching out to somebody that you necessarily wouldn't, and see if you can have a experience with them. That could be just going for a hike. It could be going bouldering, climbing of some sort, going for a swim, going to a concert, whatever it is. And what you'll find is you're probably going to pull away an experience from that was very unexpected. We tend to have this idea that our own inner dialogue is what's going to manifest into reality, when 90% of the time that's not the case. How many times have you gone into a situation with an expectation and then walked away and been like, wow, that was actually way different than how I thought it was going to go? And the reason is because you're projecting your ego into a given situation, and you're not letting a situation or an experience actually happen. So try to create those experiences and share something with someone else, and you might be surprised at how much your overall stress gets reduced as a result. Number 7, the final one, is to build a not to-do list. A lot of people think that by having a to-do list that they're going to be setting themselves up to have a successful day, they're going to be getting all these things done, they can check the boxes off, and that's all good. But I would encourage you to look at the flip side of that as well and write down stuff that you should not be doing. And it's very easy to think about. when you go to do something, like, probably shouldn't be doing this and I should be doing that other thing. And it kind of plays on the dichotomy of a to-do list in the inverse. So we kind of just like flip that around. And by having a not to-do list, you can, it's not that you won't be able to check things off, but you have a way to consistently look at something and be like, okay, if you're doing that thing and you're looking at the list, you're going to feel pretty bad about yourself because you're like, okay, well, that's probably something that I shouldn't be doing because I wrote said thing down. And what it's going to allow you to do is do the inverse to what your list is without you actually thinking about it. You're kind of playing reverse psychology on yourself. Because if I write down, I'll break this down. So if I have a to-do list and I'm like, okay, I got to do X, then I got to do Y, then I got to do Z. If I only get those two things done and I forget to do the third, and you're like, okay, well, I got 2/3 of it done, but I didn't get this last thing done. You're still having to put a conscious effort into trying to get X, Y, and Z done. However, on the flip side, if you have a not to-do list, you're inevitably going to do the things that you have to do. And it's kind of just a different take on being productive. It's something that I've been playing around with for the past few months, and it's quite interesting because the psychology of it is just very different. And you're drawn towards just things that would probably be on the to-do list, but you're doing them as a result of not doing the things that you set yourself up for not to do. If that makes sense. I hope you can follow along with what I'm trying to say. Anyways, that's all for the video today. I hope you guys did find the video useful and you found it informative. My intent here is to just provide information as well as just a set of ideas of how to look at things maybe in a different light that you wouldn't have thought of before. If you have any recommendations or suggestions around content that you want to see in the future, just let me know in the comment section down below and I'll be answering all those questions myself. And also, if you do want more content around lifestyle optimization, how to live sustainably, then don't be afraid to like and subscribe to the channel, as it does help to bring more like-minded individuals like yourself to the platform. Until next time, I hope you guys are prioritizing and then you're optimizing. We'll see you then. Peace.